Thank you, Carrie, and thanks everyone online for joining us today. This webcast is going to discuss the impact that energy efficiency has on the profitability and value of commercial real estate. There's absolutely no doubt it's a key factor in driving net operating income, property value, lease rates, occupancy rates, and property marketability. And whether you're an owner, developer, property manager, or tenant, you're going to find this information to be very beneficial. Without an appreciation of it, you're definitely leaving money on the table. Now, why does energy have such a significant impact? It is really the single largest non-wage related operating expense, and for most buildings, 30% of all consumed energy is wasted. The average age of U.S. buildings is 50 years, and for the most part, these buildings have 30-year-old energy-related technology. Plus, this is a major contributor to harmful air emissions. During this webcast, we're going to show how energy-efficient commercial real estate drives higher rental rates, net operating income, and market value. Now, there are some key givens for this to be true. First of all, you didn't overpay. The building was purchased at the right price and with the right financing. Second of all, the appearance is good. It does have curb appeal, and it's in the right neighborhood. And third, the current price per unit or square foot is in the ballpark with comparable area buildings. Now, there have been a number of studies that really define the impact of energy efficiency on the profitability and value of commercial real estate. One from the Deloitte Center for Financial Services talks about in their 2015 Commercial Real Estate Outlook. And the impact this has really cuts a pretty wide swath for commercial real estate operations, impacting everything from the environment, portfolio performance, top and bottom line, asset value, stakeholders engagement, and brand perception. Another report talks about green building asset valuation. In this report, they cite overwhelming evidence for Energy Star properties that are driving rental premiums, higher market value, and sales price premiums. Deloitte Consulting also published a report that talks about the benefits of commercial properties that underwent energy efficiency or water conservation upgrades. They saw significant increases in, first of all, the ability to attract talent. This is becoming especially important with the younger generation. People want to work for a company that's green and environmentally conscious. Second of all, it adds to the goodwill and brand equity of the company itself. Third, it improves workforce productivity and also employee retention and employee health. And a Johnson Controls study talked about green building asset valuation and some of the trends. They found that Energy Star and LEED is Leadership in Energy and Environment Design. Study found that rental premiums of 2% to 17%, improved resale value of 5.8 to 35%, and higher occupancy rates from 2 to 18%. Now, these cuts really pretty a broad range, but even at the lower values, these do have a significant impact on the profitability and value of commercial real estate. And a big plus for green building owners, they're viewed as good environmental stewards, contributing to the company's image and brand equity. Now, this impact is tough to measure, yet we know it exists, and as we just saw, with some of the younger folks, working for a company that is environmentally conscious is a big plus. And with regard to tenants, most have triple lease agreements and are responsible for all expenses, including energy. And they too can significantly financially benefit from an energy efficient building. If tenants operate on a 12% net profit margin, every energy dollar saved is equivalent to $12 in additional sales. If they operate on a 5% net profit margin, every energy dollar saved is equivalent to $5 in additional sales. Considering the typical building wastes 30% of the energy consumed, this significantly impacts bottom line performance, and anything your landlord can do to improve energy efficiency has a big positive impact on your profitability. Unfortunately, relatively few commercial buildings have undergone an energy efficiency upgrade. This could be lighting, HVAC, building envelope improvements. They haven't done many things at all. Over 90% of the companies surveyed had energy management goals, and over 60% identified reducing energy as a primary motive. This seems like it should be a no-brainer. Why haven't they? Improving energy efficiency is usually very capital intensive, and many projects simply don't meet a company's financial hurdle rates. This could be payback, rate of return, internal rate of return. However, there now are some new options for financing energy efficiency upgrades that overcome these obstacles. One of the most innovative is Property Assessed Clean Energy, the acronym PACE, financing program. PACE provides long-term loans. It could be 10, 15, 20 years, or even longer, 100% pre-funding. There's no capital that's going to be required, and at a fixed interest rate. PACE is a public-private partnership of local governments, property owners, lenders, and contractors. The tax mechanism provides the funds to repay the financing. The property owner simply signs an agreement with the lender, who is most often private, and the local government. Now, PACE offers a number of key benefits versus traditional financing options. With regard to down payment, no down payment is required for PACE. They will fund 100% of total project costs. Unlike a bank or private loan, banks will typically fund 80%, and you're responsible for the remaining 20%. With regard to the finance rate, with PACE, it's going to be at a market rate. They're really based on the 10-year Treasury rate plus a number of basis points above that. A bank or private loan, they can have a competitive rate. And we often hear from property owners that the rate they can get from their local banker is much more competitive than a PACE loan. But I think the key question to ask is, will that competitive rate be extended for the entire term of a PACE loan, which again, as you can see, can be anywhere from 10 to 30 years, and the answer is a resounding no. With regard to the term, although bank loans can be from 1 to 7 years, generally we see 3 and 5 year loans as the most common. With regard to the debt capacity, with a PACE loan, it remains the same. As we saw, you can treat a PACE loan off balance sheet. With a bank or private loan, your debt capacity is obviously reduced. Upon sale, this is actually a lien tied to the property with PACE. With a bank or private loan, you sell the property, you're writing a check to cover the remainder of the loan. As far as recourse to the owner, there is none with a PACE loan. Once again, the property secures the loan. With a bank or private loan, there most often is owner recourse. In many states, to qualify for a PACE loan, the resultant energy savings must be greater than the entire cost of the project. This includes both hard and soft costs, such as energy audits, labor required, equipment, finance, materials, legal costs, resulting in a positive cash flow project from day one. And what this means for many property owners undergoing energy efficiency project financed by PACE, they're actually more profitable by upgrading their facility than by maintaining the status quo. In some states, the PACE project developer guarantees the resultant savings and a positive cash flow. Generally, the maximum PACE loan is roughly 30% of the property's fair market value, but this does vary by lender and PACE administrator, so this is not a hard and fast number. Neither is the minimum value of a PACE loan. It's going to be roughly $100,000, but again, this can also vary by lender and PACE administrator. Plus, there is no maximum or cap to a PACE loan. By establishing PACE districts, local governments increase property owners' profitability by reducing their operating expenses. They help drive economic development, which requires zero taxpayer funding, and they protect the environment and increase property values. With regard to economic development, these energy efficiency projects are putting a lot of people to work. This includes architects, engineers, and a number of different contractors. And again, there is no taxpayer money at all going to fund these projects. This makes it very, very attractive to local governments. And if you're an owner of commercial real estate, upgrading the energy efficiency of property has a major impact on those financial metrics key to your business. First is net operating income. Reducing wasted energy drives net operating income, which directly increases property value. Improved cash flow. As we mentioned, many green upgrades are cash flow positive from day one. And third, reduced capital expenditures. PACE requires zero capital down, providing 100% financing for all project costs. Debt coverage. PACE increases your net operating income and also debt coverage ratio. Again, it's considered off balance sheet. And newfound capital. One attribute of PACE is that you can refinance recent green upgrades, providing a source of newfound capital. One property owner we work with had just really undergone an energy efficiency upgrade before he learned about PACE. His comment was, if I had only known about this 6 months ago, I could have financed this project with PACE. Well, with the wherewithal to refinance recent projects, PACE did pay him for the entire cost of the energy efficiency upgrades, had a new source of found capital, which he could use on other projects. Self-financing opportunity. In some states, property owners can self-finance his own PACE project. This allows them to earn a pretty attractive return on investment, currently ranging between 5 and 7%. Here are some of the building qualifications for PACE funding. First of all, it covers most industrial, commercial, multifamily, and nonprofit buildings. Some states, residential, and also government buildings are included. Must be in a PACE district. The business is healthy and expect to continue for the foreseeable future. The building owner is not tax delinquent, and the property is not overly leveraged. Typically, the PACE lenders like to see 80% or less. With regard to the applications that PACE can be used on, generally, if the energy savings can be accurately measured, the project will qualify for PACE. Some of the examples of qualifying technologies include, but are not necessarily limited to, HVAC systems, lighting and controls. And again, HVAC and lighting are two of the major components of your utility spend. Roughly, they account for 70% of your total bill. PACE will also cover energy control systems, combined heat and power, water conservation, water heating, electric motors, compressed air, renewable, solar and wind, and building envelope improvements. But again, this is not an exhaustive list. And if you can accurately measure your energy consumption, most of the time it's going to qualify for a PACE loan. Well, what if you're not in a PACE district? Commercial property owners can play a key role in getting a PACE district established. Bringing forward a plan for an energy efficiency, water conservation, or renewable energy project to your county or city executives and letting them know you want to fund it with a PACE loan is absolutely the best way to start the process. For these government agencies, knowing there's constituent demand for this program is key. Many times we have heard, well, we don't want to implement a program just for the sake of programs. And if you have some of the constituents raising their hand and stating they want to do these upgrades and fund it with PACE goes a long way. And there are also a number of rebates and incentives that are available regardless of how you're financing a project. These include utility rebates. These cover a pretty broad cross-section of energy efficiency upgrades, and they're offered by almost every utility. Utility choice. In a number of states, you have the option of selecting who's going to provide your utility with the electricity and natural gas. Now, this is going to be same the utility that's delivering your electricity and gas today. The difference it makes is who they source the electricity and gas from. In many cases, you're going to see a lower rate because these alternative suppliers don't have the overhead that utility does. They're not going to provide any service. They're not going to provide maintenance. They're not going to be bringing a backhoe in to lay new piping. It's your utility that's going to continue to provide the service. All you're doing is telling them you want them to purchase your electricity or gas from a different supplier. At the end of the presentation, you'll be directed to a site for a real-world example. And this was a project for a new Arbador Apartments. The new Arbador Apartments was a recent acquisition. and the owner recognized that a number of upgrades were needed. One of the key ones was new windows. The windows he had go back to the 1920s when the building was first built, and they were very, very inefficient, very single pane windows. They leaked. He wanted to replace them. The challenge he had, in order to maintain the same historical look, the windows were going to be very expensive, and he simply didn't have the capital to spend at the time. When he found out about a PACE, he was able to do the upgrade, got the new windows, maintaining the same historical look. And there were other grades that he was able to do with the PACE loan that, quite frankly, would have been put on the back burner for a period of time. Okay, now I'm going to take a few minutes to answer any questions you may have. And Carrie, have we received any questions?
Yes, Curt, we have a few questions. Number one, can PACE only be used for renovations, or can it be also used on new construction?
Great question, Carrie. PACE can be used for new construction. The examples we gave mostly centered around upgrades and retrofits. But with PACE, you can use the loan mechanism for new construction. Now, you may have a question, well, how does that work? I don't have a record of how much energy I'm spending, so how do I know how much I'm saving with an upgrade? With a new construction loan, PACE is going to establish the baseline as what's required to meet the building codes. So there will be a number of different energy efficiency levels for doors, windows, HVAC systems, lighting. It covers a pretty wide gamut. That's going to be the baseline. Now, what PACE is going to look at is what can you do to upgrade the energy efficiency from that baseline. And then we'll look at the savings. It's going to be what are the savings that you're generating from this upgraded technology versus the baseline. And that's where the savings are going to be calculated for a PACE loan. And depending what state you're on in the value, that's where the savings will have to be greater than the cost of the upgraded technologies.
Okay, Curt, the next question is, you mentioned that PACE is non-taxpayer money. Then where does the money come from? Who's supplying the funds for PACE?
Yeah, another good question, Carrie. In most cases, not all, but in most cases, it's private equity firms providing the money for PACE. They, in many cases, are managing money for pension funds. And the way these lenders look at a PACE loan as being very secure. In fact, the comment I heard is, what can be better than a government-backed PACE loan? And when they say it's government-backed, the PACE loan is a tax, and what gets paid before anything else in life? Taxes.
Okay, and the next question is, why is PACE not available in more states?
Yep, another good question, Carrie. As we saw, PACE started in 2008 in California, and it was a number of years before it really started to spread to other states. The number one reason why all states haven't adopted PACE so far, it's a question of education. Most people today are still totally unaware of the program and the benefits that we talked about. So we're on a mission to educate people, and this can be the government officials, it could be building owners, contractors. Everybody who could possibly be involved in PACE needs to become aware of the program and the benefits that we talked about. Okay, Carrie, why don't we take one more question?
Okay, I own some commercial property and was wondering where is the best place to start when it comes to looking at energy efficiency upgrades?
The best place to start is probably with your HVAC and lighting systems. Even if your building is not that old, generally it just met the minimum requirements of the building code. And why is that? In the majority of buildings, the construction costs are very first cost sensitive. It's very seldom that you're going to go over and above what you absolutely have to do. And in fact, a number of comments we heard from architects was, boy, I could really design an energy efficient green building, but unfortunately, because of this emphasis on first cost, I had to dumb down the design. I know there has been a few more questions, and we will reply to all of them by email. And in closing, if you have an energy inefficient building, you're definitely leaving money on the table. As we saw, energy efficiency has a very direct impact on the profitability as well as the value of your real estate. Here's the contact information for the Energy Alliance Group of North America, and I'm going to follow up with an email with my personal contact information. And if you have any questions at all about energy efficiency projects or the various mechanisms for funding them, including PACE, I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks for joining us today. You're going to be redirected to the case study that I mentioned previously, and I look forward to continuing our discussions.